Hello everyone, it's time for Tekken and Coffee again. This time I went to Starbucks. The girl at the counter gave me a nice smiley face on my cup. But she had a beautiful smile on her face in real life, so I'm willing to construe this as genuine. Let's see what people have been talking about in the world of Tekken recently. Difference between Claudio and Shaheen. Still going through the cast and was looking at the simpler characters to learn and torn between these two. I don't think Claudio and Shaheen are that similar actually. They have one like superficial similarity, which is that they have similar hop kicks. Kind of weird hop kicks when you think about it, because if you look at like older, more traditional hop kicks like Armor King, you know, the stiff leg that goes out and then they jump forwards. That jump forwards is important because it means that when the hop kick gets blocked, you're so close to the opponent that it's very easy for them to block punish. But with Claudio and Shaheen, they did something different where the character is almost completely stationary and then only the leg goes out, and it goes out really far, so the attack still has great range. But what it ends up doing is, on block, there's still a fair bit of space between the two characters, and that's why when you play against Claudio, he will like do a hop kick and you block it, and then you try and take your turn or punish, and he does another hop kick and that hits you. It's enough space that some of your options can actually whiff, which is interesting. They made like two of these weird stationary hop kicks for two new characters in the new game, so maybe it's like the archetype going forwards, but I prefer the older, more traditional hop kicks more because they just feel a little bit more honest to me. But apart from that, I don't think they are similar characters. I think the major difference to me would be that I think Shaheen is just a better character. He's fantastic. I think he's like a high level competitive like tournament character. A lot of safety, safe orbital, safe down for two, good mix-ups, slide mix-up even. Good wall carry, really high damage combos, good damage at the wall, good Oki. Shaheen is just great. Claudio not quite as strong, but definitely not weak. I think he's kind of a little bit underestimated, a little bit underexplored, but I think he struggles more for safety. I don't think he has great lows. He revolves more around the starburst and so on. So yeah, I think both are cool characters, so just mess around with them in practice mode and go with whatever you feel is more appealing to you. Neither has, difficult execution, except for, with Shaheen, you really want to be able to get into crouch and get that slide out nice and quick without telegraphing it too much. But that should not take too much practice. Character that relies on movement. I know that every character needs good movement to be mastered, but which character relies on it the most to succeed? It's an interesting question because I think the obvious answer would be like Zafina, but I think that's wrong because the question isn't who has the best movement, and that is Zafina, by the way, but which character relies on it the most, and that might not be her. To me, it might actually be Miguel, at least out of the characters I play, because with Miguel, you really do end up sidestepping so much. If you look at really good Miguel players, the few that exist, they do a lot of like run up, down forward one sidestep, down forward one sidestep. And when I play him, those stats that you have, before the match starts, sidestep always, ends up coming up to like S when I play Miguel because I need to step so much with him. I thought about it recently, like why that is. I think it might be because with Miguel, you have really bad range, but you still want to be evasive. So the sidestep is like an option for you to be evasive without creating space, and now your terrible range becomes a problem. It's an option that can keep you close to the opponent while remaining evasive. He also has a really good backdash, but he relies less on it because his whiff punishment is kind of poor. If we're talking, less sidestep and more specifically relying on backdash, I think it's more one of these like turtle characters, like probably a Mishima like Kazuya, or maybe Oscar, who like really backdashes and then wants to attack into the negative space with whiff punishment and stuff like that. So Zafina has like the best movement in the game, and Elisa is another character with fantastic movement, but I think there are characters that rely on their movement a little bit more. What is a devil to a dragon? No church in the wild. Kanye. officially has like the funniest bar in all of hip hop, by the way. I am a god in a French ass restaurant. Hurry up with my damn croissants. When I heard that for the first time, I was like crying, laughing. And then the song like cuts to a woman screaming for 2 minutes. It's a really weird tune, but it's pretty good. Yeah. The devil is a dragon, by the way. Isn't that the... If you've ever seen the movie Red Dragon or read the book, it's like the prequel to The Silence of the Lambs. There's that beautiful William Blake painting. I think it's called like the Red Dragon and the woman dressed in sunlight or something like that. But I think that's supposed to be the red dragon from the Bible. It's like one of the three big monsters that come during the apocalypse to lead humanity to ruin. There's the dragon, which I think is supposed to be the devil, and then there's the false prophet and the beast from the sea. And the beast from the sea is this like terrible monster with many heads. And I think that when you hear about 666, the number of the beast that is referring to, I think, is the beast from the sea that hangs out with the dragon and the prophet. Really cool stories. And I honestly think that that's a pretty good movie too. I really like the book as well. And it's a great painting. It doesn't have anything to do with Tekken though. Hey guys, how do you recognize moves and set up the lab to repeat the same situation? I'm a player coming from Dragon Ball, and I can't for the life of me figure out how to lab to beat character options. You go into practice mode, and then on the menu tabs, the first tab is like what you want the opponent dummy to do. And if you go into the options, I think the bottom one is record. So the easiest way to do this is to go in there, and then you have to pick one of the record slots, and it will put you back into the game. And if you look at the bottom left, it will tell you which button combination to press to start recording. And when you press that, you can then do what you want the opponent character to do exactly. And I think that's much better than like choosing an option from the move list, which you can also do because maybe you want to lab something super specific like this move into sidestep that move, for example, and how to deal with that. So just do that a couple of times until you've recorded exactly the situation you wanted, and then when you press play, the opponent dummy will do that over and over again. And if you record multiple options, there's a number you can manipulate next to them between like 10 and 100 or 0 and 100. And that is like if you put 50 on one and 50 on one, the dummy will do one option half the time and the other option half the time. So, you know, if you want to learn how to deal with mix-ups and stuff like that. What's Lily's most consistent combo follow-up after counter it down back 3 or counter it forward 3? Looking for something damaging but also easy and viable. Can't do her optimal combo where she does up forward 3 forward. Cancels all the time. Well, Lily cancels are like a cool part of her combo game, and it's something I think is worth practicing. But I don't have off the top of my head any other like good combos for you to use off of those specific two launchers. But I bet like maybe Looney Lily or one of these other great players has something on their channels that you could look at. How do I outspace Bob and Lars? It's an interesting question. I'm sort of able to outspace Lars a few times, but Bob is literally flying to me from one wall to another. Even after trying hard to KBD, to try to whiff punish his moves, all of them have superior range and speed. What the fuck do I even do against him? When you're playing against somebody online, it's a person on the other side. You're not playing Bob or Lars, you're playing a person using Bob or Lars. So it's not like as long as you keep backdashing, they will inevitably just whiff because you're backdashing, and now you can whiff punish. You know, people talk about that being like the core strategy of good Tekken is you backdash and then they whiff and then you whiff punish. But they might not whiff. They might look at you and see that you're backdashing, and they will compensate for that when they attack, and they will just attack deeper. The reason you see so many high-level players backdash in neutral is it's like preemptive. You know, the opponent might swing or might do something, and if you just happen to be moving evasively when they do, then you've created a free opportunity. But it's not like as long as I'm backdashing, the opponent will eventually, inevitably whiff. And if all you're doing is backdashing and waiting for that whiff, then you become predictable and it's easy for them to shut you down. But I think a good idea might be if people are like flying towards you, as you say, if they're using good gap closers, and Bob has a couple, his meatball rush, the running 3+4 and stuff like that. A lot of these good gap closing options tend to be balanced around the fact that they're linear, so you can backdash and then the opponent starts running towards you and wants to get in, and then instead of backdashing you move sideways, and now you've created the whiff that way. But I don't think it's a thing where like spacing out certain characters is different from spacing out others, unless you're talking about projectile characters. Then it becomes a little bit of a different game plan. But I would say try and experiment a little bit more with sideways movement specifically. Objectively, what makes a move cheap? I think I made a whole video on this, like defining cheap. It's surprisingly difficult to do because think about like Lars's lightning screw. In this move, or in this game, it's not a very good move because like nobody plays Lars, but it was considered so cheap in Tag 2. It's like a long-range mid-launcher that goes over lows and under highs, like extreme crush properties. And I mean, it's still launch punishable on block. You can punish it with a mid. He recovers crouching, so you have to use a mid. But you can punish it so hard. So I think like the price you pay for having access to that strong move is the risk you take, because you might get launched. But then again, if your opponent is better than you and like playing all kinds of clever shit, and then you do a lightning screw that just happens to beat a lot of options because of its crush properties, and you didn't have a plan, you didn't like intend to do something, but what you did just happened to overlap with the opponent's character model in a way where you got the launch, and now Lars has fantastic combo damage. Maybe you played like Lars Cooney, which was a ridiculous team for combos in that game, and you take the round. That's going to feel cheap because you sort of panicked and guessed, and then you came out on top. On the other hand, when you talk about cheap moves, sometimes it's very different to distinguish between what makes a move cheap and what just makes it good. Like a lot of the cheapest moves in the game are the best ones, and many of the best moves are really cheap. Zafina's down 3 is a fantastic and very cheap low, for example. So it's an interesting question to think about, but I think worry less about like whether or not a move is cheap, and then maybe like try and find out what works when you play your character and try and do well with that. Little girl is Zafina, so we got Zafina daughters as well now. Maybe this is the new character for Tekken 8. Everybody's a daughter. It's kind of interesting when you realize that Tekken lacked a staple female ninja for a long time compared to other popular fighting games. I don't think that's interesting. I don't think every fighting game necessarily needs to have a female ninja. And it's one of the... It's kind of boring how many of these arcade style fighting games tend to rely so heavily on specifically character tropes instead of like trying to come up with really original stuff. Sometimes you can really say, oh, this Fei Long in Street Fighter is a law in Tekken. They have analogs. But now we have plenty of ninjas. We've got Master Raven, Yoshi, and Kunimitsu. So ninjas for days. And they're all cool characters. I think all of those 3 characters are going to be very distinct and do their own thing. And they all have unique and interesting visuals. I don't think they're similar except for the fact that they all have like blades. So that's fine, What ranks increase your other characters? I don't remember. I think God does it. Tekken God does it. Apart from that, I don't remember. It do be like that. I guess this is supposed to be a Jack 7, and he's sipping on some down back 1 to sustain himself. And this is wrong. It actually don't be like that, because the low that you really want to rely on as a good, I think, Jack 7 player is not down back 1, it's full crouch down back 1. Important distinction, they look extremely similar, and if you're watching somebody play Jack, you might think that one move is the other, but they're very different. And if you look at the best Jack players like Saint, Anakin, what they do on the approach all the time is they run up and then they don't do down back one, they go full crouch and then they do down back one really quickly, so you can't really see it, but the animation is different as well. The important difference is that a full crouch down back one is just an amazing low for frame data. It's safe on block, I think it's like -8 or something, and safe on block lows basically don't exist in Tekken. It's very rare and very good. It's also extremely fast to impact, and you have all these other powerful options, you know, mix-up options from full crouch. Jack kind of likes to be in full crouch. Down back one by itself is still a very good move that you do use with this character, but it's more of a traditional low poke when you do that before the setup, a really important tool that you have to be familiar with in practice. I think it's actually full crouch down back one. So if you haven't thought about it before and you like this character, go into practice mode or watch a match and try and notice the difference between the two, because it's pretty important if you're going to play Jack at a high level. Lei Hellsweep. Did they remove Lei Hellsweep? I pressed down back 4 and it's just a low kick. I thought his Hellsweep was down back 4. I think his, well, I don't think that Lei has a Hellsweep, and now we're getting into, like, you know, the names of things in Tekken. People, you know, some people say while standing, some say while rising. When I say a Hellsweep, I don't refer to Leroy's knockdown low. I think it's down back for 1+2. As a Hellsweep, I call that a falling leaf, and I call Lei's version of falling leaf and Leo's version of falling leaf, because for me, when you're standing stationary and then you do a low sweep that knocks the opponent off their feet and then a damage hit to knock them away, that's a falling leaf category move to me. I think that a Hellsweep necessarily needs to come out of some sort of a crouch dash. So, you know, that's by the by. But I think what you're talking about is what I call the falling leaf for Lei, and I think it's down back 4/4. You want to do both hits, but it's a really interesting move, honestly, because you can do fun stuff. It does different stuff on clean hit. You can do combos. I haven't used it in a while. I did a video on Lei a while back where I experimented with that move, and it's deeper than you would suppose. But I think what you're referring to is probably down back 4/4. So just try pressing the 4 button twice and see what happens. Tekken World Tour Champion Chikurin Season 3 tier list. I mean, this looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with this tier list. I mean, you know me, I'm obviously going to say that I think Elisa is a little bit too high and should go down. And I think Miguel and Katarina should be lower than this as well. Zafina is placed properly. Maybe Marduk should go up a little bit. Maybe... yeah, but apart from that, I mean, what I really like about this tier list, just looking at it briefly, is the fact that Julia is up here, because I think, I've been thinking about it recently, how I think she's probably easily the best female character in the game. I think she's better than Zafina. I think she's stronger. Zafina has the best movement in the game, but Julia still has very good movement, and then all of her moves are just infinitely amazing, and her combo game blows Zafina out of the water easily. I mean, it might be the most powerful combo game of like any character in the game, discounting, you know, like Geese with meter and stuff like that. I've seen people carry wall to wall on the widest stage in the game with Julia, which means that you, I mean, in theory, you could always get the wall when you launch with this character. And then when you're there, amazing options. And then the Oki is a nightmare, your gap closers. And then another thing with her is, like, every time you score a knockdown, she usually has some sort of really chunky ground hitting mid that she can collect like an additional 20 damage with after every knockdown. So Julia is like easily one of the strongest characters in this game right now, I think. Arcade stick question. I play with Heihachi. I have a lot of misinputs while wave dashing on P1 side. That is the difficult side for a lot of Mishima players. The reason is, like, just think about it. If you have your stick in your left hand, if you're on player 2 side, you can pull the stick with your thumb and sort of manipulate it with your fingers from the other side. Whereas from P1 side, your fingers are on the same side, so you're kind of using your entire hand more, and it's less of a precise instrument, I think, to use the stick with. Is there a way to practice it the right way? I practice, but I still get a lot of misinputs. Sometimes there are like wrong ways of practicing something, but I think if you're practicing wave dash on P1 side and you're still mixing it up, the trick is if you can do it on 2P side, then you obviously know how it works. So it probably just a question of you needing to practice it more. You know, it takes a lot of time to get good at something, and sometimes you get a little bit better at something and then nothing happens for a long time, and then you get a little bit better again maybe. So I guess just keep practicing it. But if you want to learn like wave dashing, I'm not the guy to ask because I don't play Mishimas. But when I was practicing wave dashing and I talked to Main Man, I was like, do you have some secret tech you could give me? And his big thing was that he just said the entire thing with like getting good at wave dashing is just to really slow it down and just do it nice and clean and cool, like 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then gradually speed it up. Don't try and do like a fast wave dash and practice doing that from the beginning. Practice doing it very slow at first, and then as it gets cleaner, gradually speed it up. I think that's the way. That's what Adrian said you should do anyway, and he definitely knows. I feel kind of bad. The only 2 characters, Elisa and Noctis, I like in Tekken are the 2 people the community asks why the fuck is he, she in Tekken. Well, those aren't the only 2. Hearing people complain over the mic or send me messages when I do win, I don't win a lot because, you know, bad at fighting games. This guy's really cute. I feel sort of sorry for him. Because I spent the whole match dark wave, sweep, uppercut, or stabbing them in the toes. Don't worry about what people say or think about the character that you picked. Just do your thing and try and be genuinely like creative and have fun and play well. And I think you'll be fine. I mean, I've been playing Elisa for a long time, and it is a character that a lot of people tend to dislike. But whenever I make a video talking about her, or defending her, or downplaying her, or playing her at a high rank, what I never do is like act frustrated. I never go like, yeah, you guys don't know a fucking thing about Elisa or whatever. I just try and be, you know, humble about it and admit that of course I main this character, so I'm biased and I might be wrong. And as long as you have that kind of an attitude, people are going to be fine with you. I mean, I don't get dislikes on my videos where I talk about Elisa, but if you make one a measured response video where you're like, this is why everybody else is wrong about my main, and I have all of these cool opinions that I want to educate you on right now, then you know you might run into friction. But another thing I want to give you a big tip is if you have the option, just disable the ability for people to communicate with you post-match. I don't see the point why you would want to send messages with someone you just played a random online game with in Tekken, because most of the time, unfortunately, I mean, of course there can be like GGs and I had fun and well played and whatever, but most of the time it's frustrating enough that it's just going to be vitriol. So just save yourself from that and just move on and remove those options. It's a lot easier to stand the online environment when you do that. What's the matchup with Negan versus Huarong? I'm a Negan player and I have trouble versus Rango Mango. I don't know what that is. Isn't that the movie when Johnny Depp turns into a chameleon? What's the matchup like between these two? Is a video I've been writing for a while that I haven't recorded yet. It's something like, are matchups a thing in Tekken? Because when people say matchup in Tekken, they usually don't mean matchup. Wow, I'm sorry, I'm distracted right now. A really creepy dude in a white mask is standing on a rooftop over there, and he's looking right at me. Okay, he just went away. That was really creepy, wow. I might be somebody trying out a Halloween costume. Really freaking me out. What was I saying? Yeah, matchups. He's gone, don't worry. Because, yeah, when they talk about matchups, what they usually mean is just character knowledge. Like, do you know the matchup against Law? What they mean is, do you know when to duck, when to parry, when to step? Do you know how to play against Law? But that's not a matchup. A matchup is, what does this specific character do against this specific character? And I think that's more a thing in 2D games. it can definitely become a thing in Tekken. I think it usually revolves around punishment when it does. You know, you can't do Crimson Dawn with Kazumi against Kazuya because he can launch punish it with his 13 frame while standing launcher. But then you have some weird ones like Eliza versus Kuma is probably, I think, the worst matchup in the game. Eliza can't win against bears because she can't hit them with dive kicks because their body's angled like that and the dive kick is angled like that. So you can stand in front of them and do it and you just miss and land at their legs. So yeah, matchups are a thing, but I think with Negan versus Hwoarang, there's not something like specific that you're missing. Just I'm guessing that you're Negan. Try down jabbing a little bit more. A big tip against Hwoarang in general, I think, is not to, like, you know, criticize that character, but you do run into these players who are very flowchart oriented with this specific character, and it is like the most flowcharty character because you have strings that branch off into strings and then back into the same string over and over. When people are so focused on applying these flowcharts that they're comfortable with, they're usually worse at stuff like dealing with pressure themselves or you know, proper stuff like what to do when they're trying to get off the ground and stuff like that. So if you can knock them down in a way, if you try and apply a lot of pressure and just not let them get into, you know, do that low and start their sequence and try and be like super aggressive and stay on top of them, that usually makes them very uncomfortable and can lead to wins. So that's one tip against Hwoarang. Unless it's a very good Hwoarang, then he's probably going to kick your ass anyway, you know, because, you know, they're not flowcharting, they're watching you and making choices. Does Lucky Chloe needs buff? Yes, Lucky Chloe needs buff. She needs buff. The back turned launcher California roll does a lot of damage, but it's very easy to deal with her California roll because you just walk, and then, you know, she's rolling way over there and now she's back turned against you. So that is a scary move, but her neutral is actually interesting. I like her down forward one. I think she has good jab strings. Her 1-2 isn't it like high mid, which is cool. And her fish hook is cool because it's like a 12 frame mid. I think it's her standing 4. I think if you focus more on like her neutral stuff and her poke game, she could be solid, but she needs some help there. Like strong characters in Tekken right now are characters that have giant stupid mids that hit from half screen, give you advantage on block and counter hit launch, you know, for the match. And she doesn't really have those things. She doesn't have a lot of safety. Chloe is really quite bad at the moment. Paid Tekken ranking. A buddy of mine shared with me that there are bots, people that you can pay to level up your rank in online mode. Why is this a thing? I've been a yellow rank since season 2 and I can't fathom paying to rank up for me. That's just ludicrous. Ooh, ooh. Big wheat stash, pocket full of cash. I mean, the one other video game that I occasionally play is World of Warcraft, and it's a huge problem in that game. You go into the group finder, and it's just people trying to sell services. You know, I'll rank you up, I'll run this dungeon or this raid for you if you pay me, and then you can get achievements and accolades that you haven't earned or that you can't earn on your own. And it's really sad when stuff like that pops up. I also really can't believe that it becomes a thing, because if you're somebody who really wants a high rank in this game, to the extent that you're willing to pay for it, you must understand that the moment you stop earning it yourself, you deflate any value it could possibly have. They're saying that they're doing more stuff for like punishing cheaters in the new season, so hopefully that really becomes a thing. They haven't said, you know, anything specific about what they want to do with that. But yeah, it's just sad. But, you know, you just do your thing, and then you can be confident and happy that you earned whatever rank you have, and you're going to sleep better at night for sure. Steve, Armor King, Lee, or Kazuya. I play Yoshi. I'm looking for a secondary, and I can't decide between these 4. Can you suggest one and explain why? Pick Armor King because the other 3 are for bitches. question about knockdown states. Hey guys, can anyone tell me what a few knockdown states are called? There are 4 downed states in the game. There's head up, feet towards, face up, feet towards, face up, head towards, face down, head towards, and face down, feet towards. And they actually change the Oki situation quite a bit, so you should be aware of what state you're putting the opponent in when you're knocking them down or applying Oki. But I don't think, I mean, you're talking about legs in the air. I mean, there's crumple overstun, there's you know, a couple of different types of wall splat. I don't know if that they all have names. I think most Tekken players, when they talk about those things, they come up with an analog. You know, when they want to talk about a crumple overstun, they talk about the Kazuya launcher that does that with the electricity and stuff, because it's something that triggers, you know, the visual memory of exactly what they're referring to in somebody's mind. But I don't know. What makes Julia high tier? We talked about that a little bit earlier, but she definitely is. I'm pretty sure she's one of the better characters in the game. Dreaming of doing Hellsweep. Oh my god, this one is actually pretty good. Don't pause when you're doing Hellsweep with a Mishima, because you can tell how they really unnaturally like twist their spine. It's a really lame looking move when you think about it. I like this. This is Mishima players that have been practicing all day and they finally fall over and go to sleep. How do I get better at stopping Hellsweeps? You have to smell them, you have to feel them coming, and then you have to block, and you have to be confident in your block. The thing with Hellsweeps is what happens a lot of the time, you've probably experienced this, like, oh, he's going to Hellsweep, and you crouch, and then you stand back up, and then the Hellsweep hits. When you're commit to the low block, would be my tip. And let it breathe a little bit so that you don't stand up too early. That's the one tip I could give you. Katarina players, how do you effectively play neutral against patient players? I think you hit the nail on the head with that question, because that's her entire problem. You know, you have giant, crazy big lows, but nothing really like solid that is in between. So you're Katarina and you're trying to attack the opponent. They're moving, they're blocking everything. Maybe they're, you know, good enough that they can easily break throws even. And what can you do? You can do down back 3. You can do 2 Kintail, which is probably the best option, especially from afar, because it's fast enough that it still works, even though they can see it. They can launch it if they have 14 frame launchers from while standing. And then you can do, like, you know, your Harrier 3, which is crap. Harrier is kind of crap in general. And so you can't really break down defensive opponents. And just think about it, right? If they're super defensive, they're looking for those big lows. You do one and you hit with it, then you collect like 20 damage, then maybe you do an up back 4 or a stomp, you get some more damage on the ground. But every time they block the low properly, they're going to do like a 70 damage combo, maybe 90 with the wall. So it's just, you know, if you look at the numbers, it's not something that works out for Katarina in the long run, and that's probably the main reason the character isn't very good. It just lacks a mix-up that can really threaten people who are just waiting for her, you know. She's good when opponents try and contend with her, because she has good counter hits and good jabs and stuff like that. Alright, I don't know how long we've been talking for, but I think I'm going to let that be it for now. As usual, I really enjoy this. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys again very soon.